Just for the record.
RH.
Mr. Foreperson, will you remain standing? The remaining members of the jury may be seated. In file number AAN CR 22-0121-580T, State of Connecticut v. Brian North, what say you, Mr. Foreperson? Is he guilty or not guilty on the first count of the crime of manslaughter in the first degree with the firearm in violation of Section 53A, 55, paren A, paren 3, and Section 53A, 55A of the Connecticut General Statutes with which he stands charged?
Not guilty.
In file number AAN CR 22-0121-580T, State of Connecticut v. Brian North, what say you, Mr. Foreperson? Is he guilty or not guilty of the lesser included offense of manslaughter in the second degree with the firearm in violation of Connecticut General Statutes 53A, 56, paren A, paren 1, and 53A, 56A with which he stands charged?
Not guilty.
And file number AAN CR 22-0121-580T, State of Connecticut v. Brian North, what say you, Mr. Foreperson? Is he guilty or not guilty of the lesser included offense of criminally negligent homicide in violation of Connecticut General Statutes 53A, 55, with which he stands charged?
Not guilty.
Does the court accept this verdict?
Yes.
The jury may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please listen to your verdict as it is accepted in order recorded by the court. You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, each of you do say unanimously that the defendant is not guilty of the crime of manslaughter in the first degree with the firearm in violation of Section 53A, 55, paren A, paren 3, and Section 53, 55A of the Connecticut General Statutes as outlined. You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, each of you do say unanimously that the defendant is not guilty of the crime of the lesser included offense of manslaughter in the second degree with the firearm in violation of Connecticut General Statutes 53A, 56, paren A, paren 1, and Section 53A, 56A of the Connecticut General Statutes as outlined. You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, each of you do say unanimously that the defendant is not guilty of the lesser included offense of criminally negligent homicide in violation of Section 53A, 55 of the Connecticut General Statutes as outlined. Mr. Foreperson, is this your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, is this your verdict? So say you all.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would either of the parties request that the jurors be polled?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
All right then. Your work is done here. You have the thanks of the state of Connecticut and the court, the parties. This was a difficult case. The work that you did was hard. And like I told you in the first place, you won't ever forget it. So you are discharged. Your jury service is complete. I would ask that if you could remain in the room behind here for a few minutes. I'd like to speak. Excuse me. Anything from counsel?
Not from the state, Your Honor. Not from the defense, Your Honor.
All right. Sir, you have been acquitted. You are discharged. Do we have anything else we need to do here?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then we are adjourned.
All rise.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you are listening into live inside the courtroom of Milford courtrooms. Trooper Brian North cleared of all charges in the shooting death of 19-year-old Mubarak Soulemane. Trooper North, now 33 years old. This happened in 2020. We do have two crews on standby. Our NBC Connecticut's Mercedes Landaverde was inside that courtroom, and also alongside her, NBC Connecticut's Kevin Geis. He's live outside the courtroom with more on this. Kevin.
Amber, good afternoon. As you just mentioned, State Police Trooper Brian North found not guilty on any of the charges that he was facing. Now, it's important to note that these charges, it was not just first-degree manslaughter. That was what he was originally charged with. But what we learned during the jury instructions is that he had to actually work through multiple charges besides just that first-degree manslaughter. The jury also had to consider second-degree manslaughter as well as criminally negligent homicide. And each time the jury had to go through each of those charges, they also had to work through a little bit of a defense element. So was he acting in defense of the fellow officers that were on scene with him? So that's why you heard inside that courtroom multiple charges get read, even though he was only facing directly first-degree homicide.
Now, Kevin, during cross-examination, we know North talked a little bit about his mindset in that moment on January 15th of 2020 versus now seeing the video from 4 years later, acknowledging in court other options were possible. Now, in what way, if any, do you feel that his acknowledgement played a part in this?
Right. So he multiple times throughout interviews, as well as speaking with his command staff after the incident happened, didn't note any defense of fellow officers. He just noted multiple times that he kept going back to what he was trained to do. So that's what we continued to hear during his testimony, is that everything he did, every way he acted was in sort of his reverting back to his training. So we're waiting to hear a little bit more if the state police union speaks to training at all. We're waiting to hear if Connecticut State Police say anything about their training. But that's what he continued to reiterate throughout his time on the stand, was that he kept reverting back to his training. That's why he fired 7 shots. That's why he was working under sort of the circumstances that he was.
After a 10-day trial, this being the final third day of deliberations, anticipating this verdict obviously to come down following a series, we know, of technical difficulties with watching the video, playing it back, jurors requesting to see Trooper North's testimony during cross-examination. Let's talk a little bit about the message, what message this verdict sends to other officers across the state when it comes to training.
Right. So I had spoken with a University of New Haven professor last Friday as the jury got ready to finish up hearing from the defense, as well as, go into deliberations. And what that professor kept telling me is that officers are trained so thoroughly throughout the state of Connecticut that ever since they have to sort of continue to work through that training. And it's something that, regardless of the verdict, will become extremely focused on, extremely critical for police departments, not just Connecticut State Police, but local municipalities, and not just here in Connecticut. He noted that this was getting attention from police departments across the country. So this is something, regardless of the verdict, he anticipates that police departments, state police, as well as municipalities, will spend a lot of time going over this video, discussing this verdict, and focusing on training.
Kevin Guys, live for us outside a Milford courtroom after this Trooper North verdict. Kevin, thank you so much. I want to get to our NBC Connecticut's Braceda Landaverde. Braceda, you have been in the courtroom the past 10 days, know the ins and outs of this case. Let's talk about this and the reaction from Soulemane's family inside the courtroom.
Yeah, Amber, so I just want to walk you guys through everything that was happening in the courtroom as that verdict came down. Again, as you heard, Trooper North was found not guilty of first-degree manslaughter with a firearm and the lesser charges after that. Now, when the verdict was called, you could just sense the tense in the room, and you could, from Trooper North's sides, you felt a huge sigh of relief when that verdict did come down. I turned around and I could see that his wife was very emotional, in tears. And then shortly after, one of the members of Soulemane's family walked out of the courtroom, very emotional as well. And then another member walked out as well. And as soon as everyone was able to stand up, there were just hugs on both sides, tears on both sides, very emotional on both sides. Soulemane's family just crying, his mom crying, also Brian North's mom. We could see her, she was crying. Very emotional day for both sides. And just, Amber, this case, happened in 2020. And just to walk you through some of the events that the investigators were looking at. On January 15th, 2020, police say that Soulemane was inside an AT&T store. He was seen holding a knife shortly after. They say that he stole his Lyft driver's vehicle and then led police on a high-speed pursuit from Norwalk to West Haven. And then in West Haven, that's where state troopers were able to box him in on Campbell Avenue. Now, just to walk you even more through those events, Trooper North has said that he always acted in the defense of other officers, that he feared that they were in danger, that he saw Soulemane holding a knife and that he believed that Soulemane was going to take that knife and potentially stab either a West Haven officer who was responding or a state trooper who was responding with him either in the neck or in the head. And he said that he believed that that could cause death to one of the officers. The Soulemane family did tell us that Mubarak Soulemane suffered from mental health issues and was diagnosed when he was in high school and had been taking medication at the time of the shooting. They were unaware if he was taking the medication or not. And they said just the day before, his girlfriend had testified. She was one of the first people to testify who said that he was having an episode. Now, we are outside of the courtroom and we're just waiting for everyone to make their way down. Everyone was upstairs, the Soulemane family. Again, we saw his mom, his sister, his brother, and other people also supporting the Soulemane family. On Trooper North's side, we saw his girlfriend. They're actually walking out right now. We'll show you. They're walking there right now. You could see State Trooper Brian North is holding hands with his wife, his attorneys walking next to him. It looks like they are not going to say anything today. We were waiting to say if they would speak after the verdict came down. It looks like they are getting in their car. State Trooper North, again, just got in a car with his wife. His attorneys are standing outside. Frank Riccio, his defense attorney, is walking to the mic right now. He is joined with someone from the Connecticut State Police Union. Again, we are waiting to see if they will say any remarks. Amber, again, as we wait to see if defense attorney Frank Riccio is going to speak or not. During the trial, his argument was that at the time when Trooper North was responding, he thought that this was a carjacking incident. There was a lot of debate back and forth whether it was a stolen car theft incident or a carjacking. And the defense really tried to show to the jury Trooper North believed he was responding to a carjacking because that is the information that West Haven PD gave, Amber. So that is the information that they provided to jury during the trial.
And Briseida, and thank you again for all of this coverage and this information. And again, it does not seem that Trooper North's attorney will be speaking at this time. But I do have a question for you. We do know that Trooper North admitted that he could have done things differently after reviewing that video. We also know he made statements regarding his mental health, not being able to sleep at night, going over and over again this scenario in his head because he says he wanted to take on this job, took on this role as a state trooper to help people. It looks like the attorney will be speaking right now. So let's. Okay, and he's not.
Yeah, Amber, as we are waiting for the attorney to speak, and it looks that they are heading over. So we will go to them as they prepare to speak against.
My name is Frank Riccio. I'm just going to give a brief statement. We are very happy with the verdict and the result. Still can't say very much because there still is a civil case pending. And this is definitely not a time for celebration because a young man still lost his life. So we are happy with the result. We await the civil case and how it resolves. Other than that, I really can't say anything more. But thank you very much.
All right, and you just heard from Trooper North's attorney. Trooper North exiting after found clear on all of the charges in the shooting death of 19-year-old Mubarak Soulemane. We spoke to our NBC Connecticut colleagues who have covered this trial for the past 10 days. It's been the final day, third day of deliberations there. Once again, cleared on all of those charges. We also discussed the cross-examination. North talked about his mindset in the moment of that shooting versus his mindset now after seeing the video from January 15th of 2020. We do know also that the state called on two experts to weigh in on North's use of force, so viewers know where they stood. One believed that it was an excessive use of force, the other did not. So obviously those played a huge part in this trial and in this verdict. A case like this also obviously calling into question training and the means to de-escalate a situation. They talked a lot about that during this trial, obviously. I want to see if Kevin Geis is standing by to ask Kevin a few questions regarding this verdict and kind of what he's seen during this time and the information that was brought to him. All right,
Still
we're going to go to break
shaken.
quickly.
This is not something that he will ever live down because it was a very traumatic experience. He'll live with him for the rest of his life.
As we were waiting for the jury to come down with that verdict, what was going through your head?
What's the verdict? You never know what a verdict will be. They worked conscientiously, and we're happy with the result.
And Trooper North throughout this whole time has said he, acted in the defense of other officers. How does he feel going home today, getting a not guilty verdict?
The verdict is obviously favorable for him, but it doesn't change what happened on January 15th. It still affects him very deeply every day.
You said at the podium, one more last question. You said at the podium, the Soulemane family, they still lost, a son, a brother, a family member. Did you share any words with them?
I've shared words with them during the dependency of the trial, so they've been aware of my feelings as well.
Any words after the verdict came down?
To the family? No, just because the timing being what it is, but I've shared words with them in the past.
Thank you so much, Frank Riccio. Thank you. Thank you. Amber, as you just heard, I spoke to Attorney Frank Riccio there. He said that, Trooper North still thinks about this a lot. You were talking about the mental health of Trooper North just before he spoke. And he did say he thinks about the shooting every day. He loses sleep over it. When the shooting did happen, he said his heart rate was really high. He was taken to the hospital to get checked out right after the shooting. He also said how he tried to perform life-saving measures on Soulemane that day. Right after the shooting, he did try to perform CPR. And we could, again, in the courtroom, just see he was sharing a moment with his wife. They were both crying, both very emotional after hearing that he is not guilty of first-degree manslaughter. Amber.
Londa Beardy, thank you so much. You've been on this case since the very beginning. Now, once again, if he was charged, which he was not, he was cleared on all of those charges, he could have served anywhere from 0 to 40 years behind bars with a mandatory 5 years in prison. Again, he has been cleared on all of these charges. We're going to take you back inside the courtroom of a recording when that verdict came down. Once again, this has been 10 days, 3 days of deliberation. We had some technical issues with the jury reviewing that video. And the interesting part of this is, in this case, there were two parts that were really considered separately. The shooting itself with Soulemane, Trooper North, and the two other officers, two West Haven officers, and then the chase that was on 95 North. And again, this all happening within a few seconds from State Trooper Brian North getting out of his vehicle. So it was very important that they went back and they reviewed the video, that they brought in those two experts, once again with the experts, one saying he used excessive force, the other said he did not. So obviously very emotional for Soulemane's family and for Trooper North's family. This very similar to the trial of Michelle Draconis. No one wins in this case. So obviously a lot of feelings running high, emotions running high in this case. I want to send things out to NBC Connecticut's Kevin Geis. He's standing outside the courtroom with more information on this verdict after it came down here, Kevin.
We've also been watching sort of supporters filter into the area. We also have been able to watch the local police department, Milford Police Department, sort of standing by, staying nice and close just in case. We know that sort of there were heightened emotions throughout this entire incident back in 2020, and it's sort of sustained through. Even right behind me a little bit, you can see on the ground, people have been planting flags and signs sort of in support of both families in this matter, support of Trooper Brian North, as well as the family and friends of Mubarak Soulemane. So we're still waiting for the Soulemane family to work their way outside if they choose to come out this way, and if they choose to come to the podium. We're standing by for that. But again, we're sort of just at this point waiting for a little bit more reaction from some of the friends and family of Mubarak Soulemane, who back in 2020 was killed. So we're still waiting for some of that. We're still slowly gathering a little bit of material from supporters. We've heard a few people honking as they go by, so they're aware that something's going on. So we're still waiting to hear a little bit more from one family. We did see his family's attorney come out at one point and speak briefly with Brian North's attorney, Frank Riccio. So we're still waiting on one party to come out, and if they choose to speak, we'll take that.
Now, Kevin, it struck me, I mean, we've been covering this again since 2020. One of the very interesting interviews we had was with Soulemane's sister, who said she was kind of, the person he went to when he was struggling with his mental health, and she kind of, talked him down. Let's talk a little bit about what we've heard from her.
Right, so we're still waiting today to hear from her, but we knew throughout sort of her interviews that she's given over the years, as well as recently as just before this trial began, that she and the family are seeking justice in some form. We're still waiting to hear if, what this verdict means for that. But we know that the family, they're seeking justice for Mubarak Soulemane. And in this case, they have to sort of still give their opinion of what they think this trial did for the family. And as you heard the attorney for Brian North mention, Frank Riccio, there is still a civil case pending. So we're still, there is still a little bit of sort of courtroom scenarios to play out to figure out exactly what justice could mean for the Soulemane family.
Live for us outside that courtroom, Kevin, thank you. Let's get to back to NBC Connecticut's Braceda Line Verde. Braceda, obviously, once again, we're talking about emotions running high, cleared on all charges. From you being inside that courtroom, is this what was expected among the talks with people there?
Amber, I can tell you that there was talks that I want to interrupt. Right, the family is coming out right now. That is Soulemane's mom coming out from the stairs right now. It looks like she is headed to the podium. She is accompanied by her attorney. This is Mark.
This is a terrible day for everybody concerned, and extremely difficult for the family to have to hear the verdict. We wish to thank the Inspector General and his team, Andy Slitt, and the rest of his staff for their tremendous work, hard work, putting on this case. We commend the jury for listening to all the evidence, taking it seriously. We disagree, obviously, with the result, but we accept the result. We're fortunate in this country to have a great justice system in the world. It's a tough nut to swallow, because while we do strenuously disagree with the result, we accept it. That's what we have to do. And now the family will move on and decompress. And Elmo, you wish to say anything? Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, and you just heard from Mubarak Soulemane's family attorney there, Mark Aaron, saying this is a terrible day for everyone, and it appears justice for that family was not served at this time. Now, I want to see if we could go back to Braceda Line Verde. Braceda, if you could hear me, I wanted to ask you just about the emotion from the mother. She has been pushing since 2020, talking about her son and all of the mental health issues that he's had throughout his life, and how it was very important for them for the public to understand what he was going through. Can we just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, Amber. So Mubarak Soulemane's mom has been in the courtroom every single day. She has showed up every single day. And when that verdict came down, she was extremely emotional, embracing in hugs with some of her other family members right there. And she testified. She was one of the first people to testify. We heard from dozens of witnesses, experts, and she was one of the first people to testify. Her and her daughter testified, and they said that Mubarak Soulemane, he suffered from mental health issues very early on. A high school student. He was diagnosed. He was prescribed medication. He had gone to the hospital several times when he was having episodes. They say that they were, his mom and his sister were both away when the shooting did take place, but the sister was aware because she had gotten a call from Mubarak saying that he was struggling that week, that he was struggling mentally that week, that he, in the day just before January 15th, that Tuesday before, that he was having a really hard time. And so they have made sure that everyone knows that. They have made sure, as Kevin said, that they would have liked to see justice in this case. And Amber, they did not get that today. We just heard from the attorney saying it is an extremely difficult day for the family, that they accept the results, but it's unfortunate for them. They do think the criminal justice system, and that we have a criminal justice system in place where someone can go to trial and have a jury, but they are just devastated by that verdict that came down. The mom did not want to share any words today. We have heard from her before, who she talked about Soulemane and his interest and who he was. He was 19 years old. They have said that he should have never passed just so early in his life, that he had his whole life ahead of him, that he should have been able to graduate college, that he should have been able to continue to live a life. So very emotional for Mubarak Soulemane's mom, Amber.
And Bree, obviously we have two young men in this case now. Trooper Brian North, he is 33 years old. I believe this happened 4 years ago. Mubarak Soulemane, just 19 years old. When you talk about all that they had for the future and to look forward to, do you recall Mubarak's mother saying anything in regards to Trooper North and how she felt about him and his testimony on the stand? Do you have any idea about that?
After she testified and after Trooper North testified, there were very little words heard from the family and their civil attorney. Very few words that they could share. Everything was said before that they would like justice. But Amber, you did say two young men here. Trooper North is 33 years old, and when he testified, we learned that he is married. His wife was also in the courtroom every single day. And again, when this happened in 2020, he was younger than 33, and no kids yet. He said that on the stand, no kids yet. And he said that he joined state police because he wanted to help people. He actually got his degree in philosophy. He didn't immediately know that he wanted to be a state trooper, but he wanted a job with a purpose, a job where he could help people. When we were hearing back the testimony today, because the jurors wanted to, again, hear Trooper North's testimony, we were hearing again what he said. And he said that he just wanted to bring smiles to people's faces. He wanted to make a difference. And that's why he entered the agency. And he was also recently part of the tactical unit. Now, the tactical unit responds to more severe crimes. And so he was getting additional training to be part of that tactical unit. He wanted to continue to grow as a state trooper. He was dedicated. And there was a moment, Amber, when he was asked, do you still want to be a state trooper? And there was a long pause. We never got an answer for that. There was an objection called, and we didn't get an answer about that. But again, 33 years old, very young. His mother and father were also in the courtroom every day, and we saw other law enforcement officials, some of his colleagues in the courtroom as well. And again, Amber, just 33 years old, very passionate about his job.
Just looking at this case, taking it from a 40,000-foot view, Bree, I'll get back to you in 1 second. Let's get over to NBC Connecticut's Kevin Geis. Kevin, I know you were trying to get a one-on-one with an attorney there. Did you have any luck?
Yeah, absolutely, Amber. So I just wanted to ask you quick, when we had spoken with family members of Soulemane, they had mentioned that they were seeking justice in this case. Do you feel as though justice was lost? Do you feel as though this moving through the entire trial was justice?
Well, we disagree strenuously with the result. So, in that respect, I guess we have questions about whether justice was fully done and received here. But we respect the outcome of the case. The jury system, in this country is terrific. Jurors, I have to believe, try very hard to do the right thing. But at the same time, it's difficult for the family to deal with a devastating loss like this. The trooper gets to go on with his life, and Mubarak's never coming back, certainly. So it's a tough nut to swallow. It's going to take them some time to deal with this. It's another loss today.
And you mentioned when you were speaking at the podium that the family will take some time to decompress, to process exactly, what this verdict means for them. But could you speak at all to how the family is doing in this moment? We saw them just leave a few minutes ago. Can you speak at all to how they're doing?
Sure, they're devastated. They've had to relive through the trial all the horrific events that unfolded that terrible afternoon and early evening. And then to hear the acquittal on all the three counts, tragic loss all over again.
And can you speak at all? We know there's a civil case pending. Can you speak at all to sort of next steps for this case? Do you plan to appeal anything regarding that, or does the state plan to appeal?
I don't know. You'll have to contact the Inspector General's office for that. I just don't know. I know it's a tough loss for them too. Obviously, they've put their heart and souls into this for several years now. The civil case is pending. It had been put on the back burner pending the outcome of this. So I don't think this outcome derails the civil case in the least for legal technical reasons. So in a week or two, I'll be in touch with the Attorney General's office and we'll move forward.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Amber, so you heard right there just a little bit about sort of, how the family is doing. They're continuing to process this. They're continuing to feel exactly the emotions acutely, similar emotions they felt back in 2020. So we'll continue to, pull different answers from some of the different family members and things that are here. We're going to send it back to you for now.
All right, Kevin, guys, thank you so much. Well, for anyone just joining us now, we would like to recap the breaking news for you. Trooper Brian North found not guilty on all charges in the death of Mubarak Soulemane. Just to recall, Trooper North was charged with first-degree manslaughter in the death of Mubarak Soulemane back in 2020. The trial beginning on March 4th. Police say Soulemane stole a rideshare car and then led officers on a high-speed chase on I-95 before he was boxed in by police in West Haven once again on January 15th in 2020. North telling investigators he shot Soulemane because he had a knife and looked like he was going to attack other officers on the other side of that car. The Inspector General concluded during that time the shooting was not justified. Soulemane's family says he had mental health issues. He was diagnosed in high school with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and was on medication for them. However, we don't know if he was on medication during that time. We do know North was placed on paid administrative leave and his police power has been suspended since 2022. The state police union said it disagreed with the decision to prosecute North in the first place. Obviously, we'll have more analysis on this. We'll be back with more live coverage and analysis later on the news at 4.